There comes a moment in every life, a breaking point, a moment when your hands begin to tremble, your mind feels drained, and your heart quietly whispers, "I can't do this anymore." But my friend, this is exactly where the true power of faith begins. Because when you reach the end of yourself, you stand at the very beginning of God. There are burdens your shoulders were never created to carry. There are storms your strength alone can never calm. And there are doors that will not open by human effort. You were never meant to handle everything on your own. That is why God is part of your life. When you have done everything you can and nothing changes, that is not the end. That is the moment to step back and say, "God, I hand this to you now." When you stop fighting for control over things that were never yours to control, you allow God to work in ways you could never imagine. Many people do not fail because they lacked effort. They fail because they never learned when to release what is beyond their reach. You pray, you plan, you push, you fight, but if the door still doesn't open, if the answer still doesn't come, it is not a sign of your weakness. It is a sign that now this matter belongs to God. Faith does not mean doing nothing. Faith means doing all that you can and then resting, knowing that what you cannot do, God will take care of in His time, in His way, and for your good. Life becomes heavy when you carry what was never meant for your hands. You cannot hold every fear, every worry, every outcome. Some things belong only in the hands of the one who created time, shaped the stars, and breathed life into you. Because when you try to control everything, you end up controlling nothing. But when you surrender everything, find you peace in everything. The moment you say, "God, take this. I can't carry it anymore," heaven begins to move. Many of you have prayed and yet still carry the worry. You say you trust God, yet you stay awake at night rehearsing the problem. You claim to believe in divine power, but your heart is still restless. Listen carefully. Faith is not proven by what you say. It's revealed by what you release. When you truly believe that God can handle what you can't, you don't just talk about trust, you live it. You let go of your grip and allow His hand to take over. You stop trying to fix people, to change hearts, to force outcomes. You stop fighting the wind and instead raise your sail to let God's breath carry you forward. The truth is, sometimes God waits until you let go before He steps in, because as long as you are still trying to be the solution, He will let you. But when you finally say, "God, I surrender," the entire atmosphere around you begins to shift. Suddenly, what looked impossible starts aligning. What looked lost starts returning. What looked dead begins to breathe again when you give what you can't handle to God. You are not losing control. You are placing it into the hands of perfect control. You may be facing things right now that seem impossible. A situation that's beyond reason. A pain that words can't explain. A door that refuses to open. A person who will not change. You've tried everything. You've cried. You've prayed, and still nothing, my friend. That's not because God has forgotten you. It's because He is preparing something deeper than your request. Sometimes God delays to develop you. Sometimes He waits not because He's denying you, but because He's refining you. And if you keep trying to handle what's meant for Him, you'll block the miracle that's already on its way. When you release your battles into God's hands, peace enters your soul. The things that once terrified you no longer have power over you. Because when God holds the situation, He holds the outcome. Your enemies can't touch what God protects. The storm can't destroy what God sustains. The pain can't last longer than God allows. Everything has a divine boundary when it's in His control. That's why the wisest thing you can ever do is stop fighting battles that belong to God. Stop arguing to prove your worth. Stop running after people who left. Stop worrying about what you can't predict. Lift your eyes and say, God, this is yours. Letting God handle what you can't is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's spiritual maturity. It's understanding that the same God who designed the stars knows how to design your life. You don't have to figure everything out. You just have to keep your faith in the one who already has. When you carry everything in your hands, it breaks you. But when you place everything in God's hands, it builds you. Some of the greatest blessings are not found in fighting harder, but in surrendering sooner. Look around you. So many are anxious, exhausted, broken because they have made themselves their own gods. They believe everything depends on their effort, their control, their timing. But the more they grasp, the more they lose. Peace never lives in control. It lives in surrender. You can pray all you want, but until you release your fear, you'll never experience peace. God cannot fill hands that are already full of worry. Empty them. Let Him take it. Trust that His plan will always be higher, His timing always wiser, and His path always safer than yours. Maybe you've lost something precious, a relationship, an opportunity, a dream, and you wonder why God didn't stop it. Listen carefully. God never removes without a reason. When He takes something from your hand, it's because He's protecting you or preparing you for something greater. You think it's gone, but God is storing something better in a place you cannot see yet. What you can't handle now, He's already handling in the background. While you're worrying, He's working. While you're waiting, He's weaving the details. While you're crying, He's creating a new path for you. When you let God handle what you can't, you learn to breathe again. You stop rushing. You stop comparing. You become still, not because you're passive, but because you know you're protected. You know that what's meant for you cannot be taken from you. You understand that if it's delayed, it's divine. If it's denied, it's direction. God never leaves you with less unless He plans to give you more. There is a peace that enters when you truly say, God, I trust you with what I don't understand. That's the moment anxiety leaves and faith rises. Because faith doesn't mean you understand everything. It means you trust even when you don't. There's a kind of strength that only comes when you've stopped depending on your strength. And when you've cried, prayed, and finally said, enough, God, take it, that's when the heavens open. You must learn to recognize when it's time to let go. When you've tried, prayed, and nothing changes. It's not time to push harder. It's time to surrender deeper. There's power in saying, God, I've done my part. Now I rest in yours. The greatest miracles come not when we're struggling, but when we're still. Not when we're panicking, but when we're trusting. You may not see the full picture right now, but God does. He sees beyond your confusion, beyond your timeline, beyond your pain. Every unanswered prayer is not rejection, it's redirection. Every delay is not punishment, it's preparation. Every closed door is not abandonment, it's protection. When you believe this peace becomes your natural state, you stop asking why me and start saying use me. You stop asking when will it happen and start saying whenever you will. That's what happens when you let God handle what you can't. You begin to live free. There are people who are losing their peace because they're trying to control what was never theirs. They're trying to fix hearts only God can heal. They're trying to force opportunities that only divine timing can open. And in the process, they lose their joy. Let go. Let God handle it. You'll be surprised how light life feels. When you finally stop trying to carry what doesn't belong to you, there's a quiet strength that appears when you've surrendered everything. You stop running. You stop forcing. You stop worrying. You wake up knowing that the same God who carried you through yesterday will carry you through today. You don't panic at the sight of storms. You rest because you know the one who commands the winds is still in control. Faith means saying, even if I don't understand, I'll trust. It means believing that every loss, Every delay, every heartbreak still has purpose. And though your heart may ache, you can still say, God, I know you're handling what I can't. That sentence alone can transform your entire life. Because once you stop controlling, you start growing. Once you stop worrying, you start healing. Once you stop doubting, you start receiving. There is a power that comes only when a soul has reached the end of itself. It is the moment when you've tried everything, said every prayer, fought every battle, and yet nothing moves. That is when your heart whispers, God, I can't do this anymore. And heaven answers, finally, now I can. The divine cannot intervene in a life that refuses to surrender. As long as your hands are gripping the steering wheel, you will keep driving in circles. But the moment you release it to God, the same road that once felt endless suddenly reveals a destination. You see, surrender is not the language of defeat. It is the doorway to divine victory. When you let God handle what you can't, you are not stepping back in fear. You are stepping aside in faith, allowing His perfect plan to unfold without your interference. You must understand that control is an illusion. The more you try to manage everything, the more anxious you become, because life was never designed to obey your command. Only God governs time. Only God controls outcomes, and only God determines the right season for your blessing. When you insist on doing what only He can do, you carry a weight too heavy for a human's shoulders. You were not created to bear that load. You were created to trust. The hands that shape the universe are strong enough to hold your future. The one who made the oceans knows how to calm your storm. The same power that keeps the stars in their place knows exactly where to place you. So, stop trying to fix everything in your limited understanding. Instead, kneel in quiet faith and whisper, God, I trust you with what I can't handle. There is a sacred silence in surrender. It is not the silence of despair, but the silence of peace. It is the stillness that comes when you stop wrestling with outcomes and start resting in God's authority. Many people confuse movement with progress. They think that by constantly worrying, constantly talking, constantly planning, they are showing faith. But true faith often looks like quiet confidence. It looks like sitting in the middle of uncertainty and saying, even if I don't see it, I know God is working. The calmest person in the storm is the one who knows who controls the wind. When you let God handle what you can't, you stop living as a victim of circumstance and start living as a vessel of purpose. You begin to see that not everything that hurts you is meant to harm you. Some pain is preparation. Some loss is direction. Some delays are divine. You may not see the full picture yet, but God does. Every tear you've cried has been counted. Every prayer you've whispered has been heard. Every struggle you faced has been seen. You are not invisible to the one who designed your destiny. And though you may not understand the why, one day you will thank Him for not giving you what you thought you needed, because He was protecting you from what you couldn't handle. There are people who keep asking, why does God allow me to go through this? And the answer is simple. Because He is strengthening what He plans to use. Diamonds are not made in comfort. They are made under pressure. Gold is not refined by ease. It is refined by fire. And faith is not built when everything makes sense. It is built when nothing does. God allows pressure not to destroy you, but to prove that you are built for greater things. You think the delay means He has forgotten, but it actually means He's preparing you for something too powerful to handle in your current form. So when life feels like it's falling apart, maybe it's actually falling into place, God's place. When you let God handle what you can't, you also learn the beauty of patience. The waiting room of life is never empty. It is full of souls being tested in trust. Waiting is not punishment. It's part of the process. God is not just preparing the blessing, He's preparing you to receive it. If He gave you what you asked for too soon, it would crush you, not bless you. But when you wait, when you trust, when you rest, you grow strong enough to carry what's coming. Faith means believing that even in silence, God is speaking. Even in the delay, God is directing. Even in the dark, God is designing. Letting God handle what you can't is also about forgiveness. There are wounds that you cannot heal by holding on. There are people who have wronged you so deeply that no words can undo it. You replay the pain, hoping it will somehow make sense. But it never does, because forgiveness is not about them. It's about freeing yourself from the chain that ties you to that pain. You're saying, I trust that God will deal with what I can't. Vengeance belongs to God. Justice belongs to God. Peace belongs to those who leave it in His hands. Letting go of bitterness is one of the most powerful ways of saying, God, you are my defender, not my anger. When you let God handle what you can't, you stop chasing people who are not meant for you. You stop begging for attention, validation, and acceptance from those who were never assigned to understand you. You stop explaining yourself to minds that cannot comprehend your calling. Because when God is guiding you, He will send the right people at the right time. You don't have to chase what's divine. You only have to stay aligned. The moment release who and what was never meant for you, the space they occupied becomes available for God's real blessing. There are times when you feel like you've lost everything. The door closed, the friendship ended, the opportunity vanished. But what if that closed door was God's way of redirecting you from disaster? What if that person's departure was protection, not rejection? What if that failure was a redirection towards something far greater? You may not understand it now, but the God who removes also replaces. He never takes without the intention to restore. You just have to trust His sequence. His timing might feel late to you, but it's perfect in His plan. When you hand over what you can't control, your soul finds rest. You stop trying to predict tomorrow because you know who holds tomorrow. You stop fearing the unknown because you know that nothing is unknown to God. You stop panicking over outcomes because you know that His will cannot be defeated by your worry. That's the secret of peace, not in getting everything you want, but in knowing that God is guiding everything you need. Faith is not just believing that God can. It's resting in the truth that God will in His time, in His way. When your faith matures, your language changes. You stop saying, I hope it works out. And you start saying, it's already handled. You stop saying, I'm scared of what's coming. And you start saying, whatever comes, God is with me. That is the language of power. That is the heart of true surrender. It's not about escaping the storm. It's about knowing who controls the sea. There are moments when God will allow you to feel powerless so that you finally realize where true power comes from. You've tried your plans, your wisdom, your timing, and they failed. Not because you're weak, but because God wants to show you that human control has limits, but divine control has none. When you are at your lowest, that's when His strength rises. When you stop trying to force doors open, He starts opening the ones that truly belong to you. Sometimes He lets certain things collapse so that He can rebuild them on a stronger foundation, His foundation. You might not see it yet, but every unanswered prayer is a form of divine protection. Every delay is divine direction. Every loss hides a lesson. When you let God handle what you can't, you become untouchable to despair. Because you understand that even pain is part of His plan. You no longer ask, why me? You begin to say, thank you, God, for trusting me with this test. Because every test reveals a testimony, and every burden carries the seed of a blessing. Letting God handle what you can't doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop worrying. You still do your part, but you do it from a place of peace, not panic. You put in the effort, but you don't obsess over the result. You understand that the results are not your responsibility. Faithfulness is. You keep walking, you keep believing, you keep praying, but you stop trying to manipulate the outcome, because the moment you surrender control, you gain clarity. The truth is, God doesn't need your control. He needs your cooperation. He's not asking you to make it happen. He's asking you to trust that He already has. When you finally understand this, your heart becomes calm even in chaos. You start to see beauty in what once broke you. You start to see peace in what once confused you. You start to see purpose in what once pained you. That is what it means to truly let God handle what you can't. There is nothing that escapes His vision. Nothing you've lost that He cannot replace. Nothing broken that He cannot mend. Nothing delayed that He cannot redeem. Every season has meaning, even the painful ones. The seed buried in darkness doesn't realize it's growing until it breaks the soil. And so are you. And so are you. You think you're buried, but God says you're being planted. You think it's over, but God says it's only beginning. You think you've lost control, but God says you were never meant to control it in the first place. You must learn to walk in quiet confidence, the kind of confidence that doesn't come from knowing how, but from knowing who. The kind that doesn't depend on plans, but on faith. The kind that says, even when I can't see the way, I know God is making one. Because the path of faith is not straight. It's sacred. It bends and curves according to what you need to learn, not just where you need to go. And when you truly let God handle what you can't, something miraculous happens inside you. Your heart begins to heal. You stop chasing outcomes that were never promised to you. You stop fearing things that were never meant to destroy you. You stop begging for what was never designed to stay. You begin to see that peace is not found in controlling life. Peace is found in trusting the one who controls life. When you let God handle it, the noise inside your mind grows quiet. The storm may still rage around you, but inside you are still because you know that God is still God. The world teaches you to fight harder, push harder, control more. But God whispers, be still. Not because you're weak, but because strength is born in stillness. The ocean does not create its waves. It receives them from the moon's pool. And in the same way, your spirit must stop forcing and start receiving. Let the rhythm of divine timing move you. Stop worrying about whether you're behind or ahead. God's plan doesn't run on human clocks. What seems like a delay is often His way of making sure the path is safe before you arrive. Sometimes God withholds things you desperately want, not to punish you, but to protect you. You think He's saying no, but He's really saying not yet. You think He's closing the door, but He's really preparing you for the one that leads to destiny. You see, what you call disappointment, God calls direction. What you call rejection, God calls redirection. No, that broke your heart was necessary to push you toward a greater. Yes. So stop trying to reopen what God has already shut. When you let go of what's behind, your hands are finally free to receive what's ahead. And let me tell you, God doesn't need your help to bless you. He doesn't need your strategies or your anxiety. He needs your faith. He needs your surrender. Because faith is not about manipulating outcomes. It's about trusting divine outcomes. When you stop trying to control how things unfold, you make room for God to surprise you with something better than you planned. Sometimes what you thought was the end is actually the doorway into a higher chapter. And sometimes what looks like chaos is God's construction site. He's building something powerful, but from the inside out. When you truly give things to God, you stop panicking about tomorrow. You start living in gratitude today. Gratitude is the sign of a surrendered soul. It says, even if I don't have everything I want, I trust that I have everything I need right now. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's working. And when you thank God in the middle of uncertainty, it shows heaven that your faith is not dependent on circumstances. That's when miracles happen, because gratitude opens doors that worry can't. Many people say they trust God, but their hearts are still restless. They pray, but they still panic. True faith is when you say, God, even if I don't see the way, I know you are making one. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. You decide to trust even when everything in your flesh wants to control. You decide to stay calm even when the future is unclear. You decide to believe that God's silence is not absence. It's preparation, because when God is silent, He is shaping something sacred. Silence is not emptiness. It's construction. Letting God handle what you can't means learning to rest. Rest is an act of faith. It's saying, I don't have to keep fighting for what's already in God's hands. You can't hear divine whispers when you're shouting over your own fears. You can't see divine direction when you're blinded by anxiety. Rest is where God speaks the loudest. When you slow down, you give your spirit a chance to align with God's plan. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing not out of laziness, but out of trust in the one who never sleeps. And when you allow God to handle what you cannot, you begin to see your past through new eyes. The things that once broke you begin to make sense. You start to understand that every betrayal was protection, every heartbreak was redirection, and every delay was preparation. The moments you thought would destroy you actually built the strength you carry now. God never wastes pain. He transforms it, turning wounds into wisdom and scars into strength. So instead of asking, why did this happen? Begin saying, thank you, God, for showing me I could survive it. That single shift moves you from victim to victor. When you finally let God handle what you can't, you begin to walk with an unshakable peace. You stop rushing. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for where you are in life. You realize that divine timing is never late, and divine order never fails. You understand that what is meant for you will never pass you by, and what passes you by was never meant to stay. You begin to breathe again, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop trying to be your own savior. There is freedom in letting go of how others see you. You no longer need validation, because your worth was established by the one who created you. When God approves you, no disapproval can stop you. When God opens a door, no voice can close it. When God says now, no delay can hold it back. So stop fighting for acceptance. You already carry divine approval. Some of you have prayed for years, waiting for a change, and you feel forgotten. You wonder if God even hears you. Let me remind you, God's silence is never God's absence. He is not ignoring you. He is arranging everything. He is aligning circumstances, preparing hearts, shaping timing. When you think nothing is happening, heaven is working overtime. The blessing that feels delayed is usually delayed only because it's still being perfected. When it arrives, it will come complete, needing no repair, no explanation, no adjustment. God's plans are not fragile. They do not depend on your perfection. They are upheld by His power. So even if you've stumbled, even if you've failed, even if you've lost your way, God can still handle it. Nothing you've done can undo what He has decreed. You cannot ruin what God has redeemed. He simply asks you to surrender your guilt, your shame, your regret, and trust that He can turn your mess into a message. Letting go means saying, God, I can't fix this, but I know you can. And remember, when you release control, you don't lose power, you gain peace. Because power without peace destroys you. But peace with power strengthens you. The moment you stop trying to control everything, life becomes lighter. The moment you stop questioning God's plan, you begin to notice its beauty. The sunrise feels softer, the air feels lighter, And even in pain, you sense purpose. This is the power of surrender. It changes how you experience life itself. You cannot carry faith and fear at the same time. One must leave for the other to grow. So choose faith, choose trust, choose surrender. Tell yourself, I will not worry about what I cannot control because I know who controls it. The same God who brought light out of darkness can bring peace out of your chaos. The same God who breathed life into dust can breathe hope into your situation. You may not see the evidence yet, that's what makes it faith. Faith is seeing with your spirit what your eyes cannot yet behold. There is a quiet revolution that happens when you truly let God handle what you can't. You stop rushing and start walking with rhythm. You stop speaking from fear and begin speaking from wisdom. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And instead say, even if it doesn't go my way, I am still safe in God's plan. Letting God handle what you can't also means releasing the illusion of control over the future. You don't need to know how it will happen. You only need to know who is guiding it. You don't need the entire plan, just the next step. Divine guidance is revealed one step at a time. God gives light for your next move, not the whole staircase. Because if He showed you everything at once, you'd either rush ahead or run away. But when you trust Him step by step, you learn to walk by surrender, not by sight. My friend, don't let your heart be weighed down by what you cannot fix. You've worried long enough. You've cried long enough. You've carried it long enough. It's time to release it. Release the fear. Release the pain. Release the future. Let God handle it. Life was never meant to be a battle of control, but a journey of trust. The more you trust, the lighter you walk. The lighter you walk, the farther you go. Because in the end, faith isn't about understanding every detail. It's about knowing the one who holds every detail. It's not about predicting the outcome. It's about trusting the orchestrator. It's not about holding everything together. It's about knowing the one who holds you together. You can rest now. You can breathe now. God is already handling what you can't. He's handling the people who hurt you, the doors that closed, the dreams that faded, the tears you hid, and the timing you don't understand. And when the moment is right, He will reveal what He has been preparing all along. You won't have to chase it, it will find you. Because what is divine will never miss its mark. So walk in peace. Walk in confidence. Walk knowing that every step of surrender takes you closer to the life God has already prepared. One day you'll look back and say, if I hadn't let go, I would have missed this. What you feared to release will become the very thing that frees you. Because that is the miracle of surrender. It doesn't weaken you, it awakens you. So today, right now, let God handle what you can't. Lay it at His feet. Don't pick it back up. Don't overthink it. Don't fight divine timing. Trust that the same God who began your story already knows how to finish it beautifully. Let peace return to your soul. Let faith rise again. Let surrender become your strength. For you were never created to carry everything alone. You were created to walk with God, trust God, and rest in God. And when you do, you'll realize the weight you carried was never yours. It always belonged to Him.